So y'all starting to see more and more why my views on voting changed? All right, we're going to continue. So this is the last one. I mislabeled the one prior, and I called it number 3 or 4. That was actually 4 or 4, and this is going to be that possibly number 5 I was talking about. So we're going to get right into it. Let's finish up with Dr. Claude Anderson.
You are this nation's official underclass now. And underclass means those individuals, by the pure nature of their social economic conditions, you're predestined to live as beggars and criminals for the rest of your existence if you don't break out now. You can hang it up. Don't worry about your kids anymore. They're through. If you don't get yourself together right now and quit playing these silly games thinking somehow because you're socially integrated, you can achieve something, you're through.
All right, so we know how our leadership did us and do continue to do us. Now let's look and see how their leadership did them.
The Jewish community of Łódź was about 230,000 strong. It was the 3rd biggest Jewish diaspora in the world after New York and Warsaw. They started persecuting the Jews. There were all kinds of interdictions. They had to wear a star.
They told Jews that they had to move into particular places to live, and they pretended this was for health reasons, the claim being that Jews were carriers of typhus and were dangerous to the public health. But it usually was in part to grab houses.
Gentrification.
The largest ghetto in German-occupied Poland, the largest ghetto in all of Europe.
The Jews had been concentrated in a certain part of town, separate from the non-Jewish population.
Getto nie było w Warszawie.
The Warsaw Ghetto wasn't hermetically sealed like at Łódź. There was contact between the people of the ghetto and those outside. Of course, there were contraband goods in the Warsaw Ghetto. 80% of the food you could find was smuggled in.
People don't have jobs. Their money is taken away from them.
W getcie było już.
There were already 360,000 people in this ghetto.
1/3 mieszkańców.
1/3 of the population of Warsaw.
Na obszarze, który nie
all living on 5% of its territory.
To starve, the death rate among Jews began to rise, particularly in the biggest ghetto.
Aha! I found something different. We ain't dying fast enough. See, they did that and they started dying off quick. See, we don't die fast enough for them. Think about that. We don't die fast enough. They put us under the same conditions, but we don't die. So then they gotta help us by putting crack, guns, other drugs, school to prison pipeline. They gotta help us along because we don't die as fast as they want.
In the ghetto at Łódź and then the ghetto in Warsaw. Some Germans said, starve, fine, let them. Faster the better. Welcoming the attrition of the ghetto population through starvation. And of course, once the population became malnourished, epidemic comes, so it's a combination of starvation and disease.
Let me ask you a question. If they are willing to let people starve to death, don't you think that poisoning the food, genetically modifying the food, God knows what, poisoning the water, that's not far off? People who would let people starve would have no problems poisoning the food and not telling you. Or let's take it one step further. People who would let people starve would have no problem with injecting you with poison and telling you that it's going to help you. I mean, they've already done that. See, the syphilis experiment.
But another group said these people are a potential labor force that we could use to help first to earn their own living and eventually to work for the German war economy. And so you had this struggle between people who wanted to create ghetto economies to make the ghetto more self-sufficient and to utilize Jewish labor for the war economy, and those that wanted to leave everything totally chaotic and simply have the Jews starve or perish from disease over a quicker period of time.
Did you hear that? Nealy Fuller says that the white supremacist is on every side of every argument. This is why we say that the Republicans and the Democrats are two wings off the same bird. Okay? We had some Germans that are like, look, you know what I'm saying? We could use them as slaves. And the other Germans are like, oh no, we should just kill them. Both sides of the day, but they both have a hatred for the Jews. There's no love there. There's just, white supremacist light, white supremacist genocide.
Creating ghetto economies prevailed. So you had in most areas of Poland gradually the setting up of ghetto economies in which German businessmen and the German military overusing the ghettos for war production.
There were ghettos where the Jews were living in appalling conditions. Others were better off and could work and feed themselves. If it weren't for the yellow stars on their coats and the press of the crowd, one would never know that these apparently healthy, well-dressed men and women were filmed in the Bedzin ghetto in Silesia, even though the film itself was obvious propaganda.
One would never know because y'all all look the same. I'm sorry, as a black person, aren't you confused by that? As a person who really looks different. Look at what they did to somebody who looks the same. Are we going to get into that same, looking the same, and how they tried to figure out the difference, though? We're going to get into that.
They set up a lot of workshops all over the ghetto, all working for the Germans. In the Łódź ghetto, they were also making women's clothes and underwear, and even children's toys.
If they can produce material, goods, things the Germans need, they can generate income, they can buy food. So the ghettos begin to produce.
One who didn't work didn't get any ration coupons. This system excluded the sick and children too young to work. They got no food, and under the circumstances, this was a death sentence.
The ghettos are a temporary measure to hold the Jews until someone has a better idea of what to do, where to send them.
For Germany, it was a holding pen. For the Germans, it was a holding pen. For the Jews, it was life itself. Meaning for the Jews, it was how you're going to live until what they didn't know.
One German practice to terrorize the population was to carry out public hangings. There would be a public execution, and usually they would force people to watch.
So in the age of technology, smartphones, they don't have to do public hangings anymore because it's all on my timeline. So we've already seen countless similarities between what was happening prior to the Holocaust in Nazi Germany and what is happening here in the United States. So, and we're not even finished yet. They haven't even gotten them into concentration camps yet. So this is why, and understand our elders were telling us this, I told you that interview was in 2015. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson was talking about that. So, you know, what I'm learning is that, you know, time is really running out. And I'm going somewhere with this, you know. I said in my live, you know, I talked about, you know, that I'm seeing a lot of my comments about, you know, us moving to Africa. And I don't see that as being the answer to to saving us. I think that we are going to have, there is no getting out of this fight. That's, if I've learned one thing from watching all of this, is we can't escape this fight. You can't run, you can't hide. You must fight. And then y'all tell me if you agree. You know what I'm saying? As we keep going and you keep seeing some more of the signs and what happens next. Because like I said, we haven't even gotten to the concentration camps yet. So y'all let me know how y'all are feeling about this, and are you seeing the similarities that I'm trying to point out. So we are finally done with part 2, okay, of the, I mean, it was so much stuff, and then there's the stuff I had to add into it. So we're finally done with part 2, and now we're moving on to part 3 of what is it, the destruction of the European Jew, or destruction of Europe's Jews.